Guys, welcome back to Decoding Babylon. And today, once again, I'm JT and we got Bryan. And today we're going to talk about what did Tucker Carlson just say? Did he just say Nephilim? Somebody said it kind of weird.
Speaking for myself, I have no idea what's going on. I don't know if this is the Nephilim, right?
I was going to say.
I don't know.
I know.
Here we go.
Dude, he said the Nephilim.
Yes.
He said the Nephilim. He's getting close though. He's getting really close to the truth. I gotta say.
Yeah, was that a way to make it sound fancier? To say, oh, it's the Nephilim.
I don't know, but Roseanne also said she called them the Nephilim as well. So they both pronounced them very, very Nephilim-ish.
I wonder if that's a situation
it's
where
French.
I wonder if there's a situation where Roseanne assumed that Tucker knew how to say it, probably because he's like in broadcast news, or he had been forever. So he's like, "Well, I better trust him." It's kind of like one of those anchor people when they start talking. They use it like they pronounce a foreign name, and they pronounce it in the perfect dialect of the place, and you're like, "That's just strange when people do that."
Yeah. I totally know what you mean. But I find it comical. But I see that. You know, it's almost like it reminds me of Alex Jones, like how Alex Jones is getting so close to the truth, but it's like he's just like a little bit off. And it seems like Tucker's like just now he's stepping into the realm of the Alex Jones almost. Not that deep, obviously, but like he's like already been shunned by the media. He's pushing away. Suddenly he's talking about Nephilim, Nephilim, like. I hope Tucker comes to the truth, though. I think Tucker's going to find it. I think Tucker's going to find the real truth. We all need to be praying for him to like discover the real truth of what's going on, because he sees it. In that interview is amazing. He talks about how it's like these people just don't like truth for the sake of truth. And it was like, and Roseanne actually made a valid point. She goes, why do they not like the truth? And, do they not know? And Roseanne's like, no, they do know. That's why they don't like the truth, because they know what's going on.
Yeah. First to set this up, of course, we just went right into it. So my buddy sent a high school friend of mine sent me a link to Roseanne's podcast with Tucker Carlson on it, and he said, skip to the 12-minute mark because you're really going to like what he said.
And the people who run our society consider themselves gods, and that's why they're not explaining.
Boy, they do. They don't think they have to.
Oh, I've noticed.
They don't think. I think I was talking to somebody and they said to me, well, they think they're more than human.
Oh, obviously.
Yeah. I go, they're not even human, because humans care about their environment and their neighbors, and humans care about other people's children.
Of course.
And humans care about living things.
Yes.
But they don't do any of that. And he goes, because they think they're more than human.
Oh, I noticed.
That's
why they want to live
royals. Forever. They think they're like royals in a rarefied sphere of DNA or something above us. Like, did they come from another planet? When you hear people talk, I can't either. But
this is the podcast to speculate on it, though.
Well, because some people say, a lot of religious people, they're into some deep rabbit holes of things, and I don't know anything.
Well, you can see why they are, though. I mean, speaking for myself, I have no idea what's going on. I don't know if this is the Nephilim, right?
I was going to say.
I don't know.
I know.
Here we go.
That's what I said.
Let me just say. I said I don't know anything about that stuff, okay? I'm a very ordinary middle-aged man who spent his life following politics, not theology. But I do know that whatever's going on is very deep.
Yeah.
I've spent my whole life around politicians and seen decisions get made, interviewed people who run things, and what's happening now is qualitatively different. So different that it's not in the same category at all.
No.
This is hurting people for the sake of hurting them. This is lying for the sake of lying. This is as the devil hates holy water, they hate the truth. You tell the truth about anything. It almost doesn't matter what it's about. It doesn't have to be about the next election.
Right.
It can just be about history, for example.
Right.
Telling the truth about history. Why should that offend anybody?
That really pisses
Periods
me
where
off.
everyone's dead. And we can't, of course, change the past, so there's nothing really at stake for us now, right? You would think people would welcome open-minded historical inquiry to get closer to what actually happened in whatever period or in whatever event. They hate that.
Yes.
Well, what are you watching? You're watching someone who hates the truth because it's true. And there's no possible profit motive that is driving that. There's no political end that is driving that. They hate the truth because it's true. Now we're in the realm of theology.
And when I saw that, I thought the way it was going, I thought for sure the way it was kind of leading up to it, I thought they were going to say reptilians. And I thought, and you know, if they did, it would have been dismissed. It would not have been as big a deal, you know, because they did say Nephilim or Nephilim. It to me, it gave it a lot more credibility because it's like, I have a feeling like that your average Tucker people who listen to Tucker probably have never heard that word before. But like if they heard reptilian, they'd be like, "Oh, Tucker's goofing. He's goofing off." And apparently, Roseanne talks about some of this stuff. I mean, I guess I haven't listened to her podcast. I've seen her on a few podcasts. I've seen her actually on Rogan a little bit. I'm not telling people to go listen to Roseanne now. I know I had people pushing back at me, and I didn't even notice it. Somebody in my comment section noticed she's wearing like eyeball earrings. I was like, I didn't even notice, but I guess I was too blown away by Tucker. But point being, I guess she talks about conspiratorial things. And so to me, it's like if she would have said Nephilim, I would have been more like, okay, well, that's still very interesting. They're talking about that. But the fact that Tucker brought it up and then he then quickly says, well, I don't really know anything about that. You're like, of course, I said, one thing I said, I think this is huge because I said, I don't know how many. They probably broke the Google machine that day when they were like people Googling what Nephilim is or Nephilim, spelling it wrong.
Nephilim.
And then, and two, it's just like Tucker was just on Fox News not that long ago, you know, and I think that sometimes in our little spheres like that, you know, we all kind of get into our little circles and we talk about the same kind of thing. So like Bryan and I, some of the things that we don't find too crazy anymore, we forget that not the normies have no idea what we're talking about. And so, so the things we start talking about, and we've talked about this stuff for a long time now, and this stuff gets talked on like TikTok, it starts Instagram, YouTube, and all our friends talk about this all the time. But when you hear Tucker Carlson talk about this, and they weren't saying, I mean, he might have like giggled after he said it, but they weren't joking. I mean, because if you listen to the whole thing, it's really about like Tucker has not seen this ever in politics. The way that way that things are being run, there's a paradigm shift, and he literally says these people hate the truth because it's true, and it's like as Christians, we know that Jesus is the truth, and that is why they hate it. I mean, obviously, if there is some connection with the Nephilim still running the show, either it's them in physical form or it's through the demonic spirits that are obviously at work. I mean, one or the other. They definitely hate the truth, and obviously he mentions specifically that they lie about history. I mean, to me, it's like I think it's a big deal. What do you think, Bryan?
Oh, you know, it's absolutely a big deal because the fact is, like, Tucker's not no fool, okay? Like, Tucker reads stuff, he watches things. I mean, he says in the podcast, like, oh, I don't look online and I don't look at the internet. You know, he's researching stuff. He's researching enough things to come to the conclusion that you would even say that. I mean, like, the first obvious point would be, like, are these reptilians? Or say something ridiculous. Are these vampires? No, he said Nephilim. Whether it was Nephilim, close enough. You know, so you know he's had enough people sending him stuff going, hey, Tucker, like, you know, I know you're wondering about these things. You should check out the story of the Nephilim because it's kind of interesting, bro. You know, like he's probably getting enough things that have tagged him. He's probably like seeing stuff and probably like starting to like question, like, what is this really going on right here? Because he's absolutely done some digging. He's done some digging enough to like even bring it up. You know, like because like I mean, like if a normal person, how would a normal person come to the conclusion of like, oh, I heard about the Nephilim from the Bible, fallen angels that made it with humans, and then suddenly be like, these must be the ones that are ruling the world? No, dude, you have to get Tucker's gone some dark. He's gone down some rabbit holes. He's probably seen our channels. Like Tucker's. I know he's seen my videos. I know it's had to have happened. And so I know he's probably like thinking, this is really weird.
Yeah, you do have to wonder that, because it's like where else would you get this? Because I think that, like, I don't know how rare Bryan and I are as far as like the stuff we talk about. I mean, obviously we know a lot of other people who talk about similar things. But there's a lot of people who talk about the Nephilim, and then they say, like, even I was looking at our video, like our Ancient Angels are getting shared all over TikTok and all these apps, and I love looking through the comment sections where some people are saying, like, we're heretical because we're saying that the Nephilim came back, even though it literally says they did in Genesis 6:4. Yeah. But like, but we are probably one of the, but so a lot of people talk about the Nephilim that were, and then we still talk about some of the Nephilim that were post flood, and then obviously then there's like, then you get into the conspiratorial aspect of it. Is like, how much Nephilim is still today? Is it just demons, or are there like literal Nephilim amongst us? Like straight up half hybrid people. Now, like
hiding in the mountains, or potentially running the government.
Or just interesting. It's funny. I was just telling Bryan, I was watching Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. It's like Percy Jackson and the Olympians. So, and again, we talk about this all the time, that in the story of the Greek mythology, like, Percy Jackson is Poseidon's son. And it's interesting how they're supposed to have no interaction together, because Zeus basically made it that way. Once they have kids, they can't, the gods can't interact with the kids anymore. It's kind of weird. But like typically in the Greek mythology, it's funny because like the demigods are not giants. Like, have you ever noticed that? I mean, like, I think like Hercules is big, but I think he's more like a muscular man. I don't think he was ever shown to be like 10 foot tall or anything like that. So the way that in the Greek mythology, it's like the gods could hide, like the demigods could hide amongst people. The other gods knew who they were, but could there still be Nephilim that obviously are not giant, redheaded, hairy, and six fingers, just like still running the show? And in the Percy Jackson movie, they literally mentioned that, oh yeah, they're still amongst us. Yeah, some even in the White House. And I was like, it was just interesting that I just happened to see that after I'm hearing Tucker talk about it, like people running the world. And like, so like the fact that Tucker went out that far to they're not just talking about ancient history. He was talking about like, is it possible the Nephilim's involved? And I know he was obviously feeding off what Roseanne was saying about the royal DNA. And I was like, that to me is like, gosh, I've been saying that, and I know I'm not the only one who says that I believe that's where this whole royal bloodline comes from. The royal bloodlines come from people who have a divine right to rule, and they have a divine right to rule because they believe, whether you believe this or not, they believe that they are related to an angel, to a god.
Wait. It's more than that. The term Roy-El? Roy means king, and El means of God. Roy-El means Roy of God. Roy-El. It's just like Michael or Gabriel.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's Roy-El. It's Roy-El.
Yeah, for sure.
So El is of God. And it's the same thing, like Nobel. It's Nob means something, and El is of God. And so that's like a prestigious title. But like Roy-El is from that same root derivation for, kings of God.
No question. But you're right. But I was just thinking, like, because this has been my belief, and I know that I don't know that Bryan shares this view, but I believe that Nimrod was a Nephilim, and I believe that when they said he's founded all these cities, I believe it meant he founded the cities by obviously setting up his sons in these places. So it's like, so if Nimrod was like the first mighty man, he was like the first emperor of the world basically, and he set up his sons in these kingdoms. And if you think about the land of Canaan being, like, so a lot of the cities they mentioned have kings that are giants in these places.
Oh yeah.
And so
the word Maximus Thrax, I think his name is, or Maximinius Thrax. That's where we get the word maximum. He was an emperor of Rome who was in like 200 AD or something. He was 8'4" or something ridiculous like that. Imagine the emperor of Rome. Like, imagine, like, he's going to be king. It's like, okay, yeah, you're emperor. 8'4" guy. Yeah, you're emperor. This is where we get the word maximum from. Maximum comes from this giant Maximinius Thrax individual who was the Roman emperor. Well, he's a massive dude.
Well, like what about like just go straight to Gilgamesh? See, I believe that Nimrod and Gilgamesh are the same being. So they were saying when they claimed they might have found Gilgamesh's tomb, like which I said is so funny that this is almost just like, I guess because this is how ignorant people are of history. If they found the tomb of Gilgamesh, that's the most significant archaeological find of all time, because it's like the oldest written account we have is like the Epic of Gilgamesh. And also Gilgamesh just happened to be a 17-foot tall king. Okay, so if they found his tomb, that's what I said. Well, how big was the tomb, first of all? Because if you think you found it, was it huge? Was it like a 20-foot coffin? Like what did you find?
Dude, absolutely.
So the point is, and then of course there's a lot of people believe that they were trying to extract DNA, and obviously this is conspiratorial of like, was the governments of the world trying to get DNA from this thing? Well, just consider this. To not get into crazy territory about that yet. Well, I did a video about Apollo and Apollyon, so like basically they're the same being. So the sun god Apollo and Apollyon from the bottomless pit is the same being. And I remember I got pushback about that, and people were saying, no, this is a different thing. Even though when John calls him Abaddon is his name in Hebrew, but he made sure to mention his Greek name, which was Apollyon. And then the temples to Apollo were called the temples to Apollyon in Greece. So like, you don't think that John knows his audience. Like he made a point to say his name's Apollyon because it is the same being. And so one of my strong arguments against that was the apostles are obviously writing and living in the Roman Empire. So the emperors Caligula, Nero, and Domitian, who obviously either these emperors literally martyred the apostles, obviously lots of their friends. Obviously Nero was horrible. He like literally lit up his streets with Roman candles, which were Christians on fire, tied to stakes. I mean, like these people were like Satan himself in reincarnate. Well, guess what? Maybe they were, because they claimed to be reincarnated Apollo. So if you think about it like that, so when these people, like, I think so many people get it twisted when they say that they I guess what we've been taught in school is when these kings or emperors called themselves gods, we just assumed they were just arrogant. No, they weren't just arrogant, but they were that too. But they believed they were like literally divine, like partially divine. They were related to the sun god.
They're royal. That's why they're called El.
Yeah. So then you think about it now, like these bloodlines obviously have been important going all the way back to the Tower of Babel. So obviously likely before that too. They've been going for as long as there's been history. There's been people following these bloodlines about like who's related to who. So things have not changed.
That's all of that bloodline tracking is all tied to Nephilim gene lineage linking. That's what that all is tied to. Like the bloodline tracking back in the day. Yeah.
Just think about that report. I always bring this up, but especially when King Charles was inaugurated, Count Chuckula or King Chuck. So he's king now. Well, he just so happens to be related to Vlad the Impaler, like the literal Dracula, like where the mythologies come from Dracula, who was in the order of the dragon. The dragoness is again like guess who the devil is? He's the dragon, guys. And so think about this. So not only is King Charles related to Vlad the Impaler, George Bush and John Kerry, who were both running for president at the same time, were related to Vlad the Impaler. And then guess what? All the presidents except for was it Martin Van Buren, when that little girl did that report, all of them are cousins. And they're all related to the king that basically was the king in England at the time of the Magna Carta. Okay, so if they're all cousins and Bush is related to Vlad the Impaler, they're all related to him. Okay, now like again, so think about the statistical chances that could be true unless they have a right to rule. And again, I said they have a right to rule.
That's it. That's interesting that you say it, because like the reality is, guys, like people think like, oh, anybody can become president. Like, you don't know, like there still may be votes on who is president or whatever, obviously, but like there is a level of aristocrat level of awareness that people do not know exists. Like there's people that think that they're born of a bloodline and they're treated differently and they're of a higher resounding resident. I've talked with people like this, that they think that they've told me that there's this bloodline that they're a part of that is like considered higher than everyone else. And these are people that, and like these people are still normal people just like us, but there's like an attachment to their lineage that allows them special privileges that the average person isn't obliged to. So even though you're voting on who's going to be president or whatever, you can't become president unless you're of this lineage. So there's like stipulations and things and aristocratic gates in place that we just don't know about as a normal person, as a normal person society. You don't know what these gates are. You're not even aware that these gates even exist. But that's like all what that is. Like all of it's like that.
Yeah, well, it's kind of interesting, Brian. Even I was just thinking about it. We did that Aquaman. We were breaking down the Aquaman trailer, and what that was about was Aquaman's son. And so the Aquaman's son was related to, there was this bloodline that went back, I guess, to the kings of Atlantis. And you're like, okay, so guys, don't you see what's going on here? It's like that's the same story. As we were saying, it's very clear that Aquaman is a Nephilim. Like, that's very easy to see. He can swim under the water. He can talk to the fishes. And again, he's from Atlantis, like, or his family's from Atlantis. It's like that's the story. Just like Percy Jackson. Percy Jackson is the son of Poseidon. Well, guess what? If there was any, like, just say, obviously, I know that it's a fictional story, Aquaman, but if there was any truth to it, guess what? Aquaman would be related to Poseidon too, because Poseidon founded Atlantis and he set it up with 10 sons. And so this is what we're talking about, is like that these bloodlines are important. And it's like, so it was interesting. And I think the way that trailer was setting up, that like there was some connection between the last son of Atlantis and this devil who was obviously chained up in this bottomless pit or in hell. I mean, isn't it kind of interesting? Like, is that showing you like that there's a bloodline that eventually releases this Apollyon Abaddon, and he's back. I mean, I think that's what the story is. I think even in that terrible movie Black Adam, that's what they were showing. They literally showed like a Nimrod character, and his family was ruling in hell. I mean, as insane as that sounds, like that's what they're showing. And it's like, if that is, like, let's just say, obviously Tucker said it. We're just talking about what Tucker. If that's true, it does kind of explain why when you see our governments doing things that are very clearly not in the best interest of the people, now you understand why. And it's like that people like to think, because Joe Sixpack likes to sit on the couch, drink beer, watch Sunday football, and call everybody in Washington stupid. God, you're stupid if you think they're all dumb. I mean, they're not all geniuses, but the people pulling the strings are not dumb. So like when they do something that doesn't work, it's only because you don't understand the result they're looking for. I mean, again, if they're I believe that that's the whole point, is like they're trying to bring about a one world government again, all of it going back to, like if these bloodlines started at Babel, that's what they want. They want to return to Babel, and they can't do that with the United States being a strong country. They can't do that with sovereign countries. They can't do it with strong countries and boundaries.
Yeah. And so that's why everything in the United States is building people up to be weak, and then they can just pull the rug out from underneath you. That's why they want everybody on electric cars and electric blah, 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 and all this stuff off the grid, illegal to plant crops. They want it so they can pull the rug out from under you, because then you're useless, you're weak, and you're vulnerable. And so that's what's coming in the direction. And these elite people have plans, whether you recognize it, whether they recognize it. Okay. Like, I don't even think half the people are even aware of what the master plan is going on in some cases. They just know that, oh, like, I'm part of this special group of people. I'm part of Skull and Bones. I'm part of whatever society, and they could get away with stuff. But like Tucker, to bring it back to what Tucker said, like, it's like literally, what is it, the Nephilim? I'm going to say yes. I'm going to answer your Tucker question. The answer to your question, Tucker, is yes. Okay, it is definitely the Nephilim. Okay, and it's very deeply connected. There are so many roots tying to this, and whether you recognize it or not, it's there and it exists. And whether the people are fully admitting it doesn't really matter. Like they're walking in some level of whether they have powers that are like fish man that can breathe in the water. That seems pretty absurd at this point because they're so far diluted down the lineage, but it doesn't mean there isn't people that are hidden in the shadows at the higher levels that still have some kind of authority or possess some level of a special ability, because there are the people that are in these places that do witch walking. Okay, they leave their body, they do astral projection and this kind of stuff. And so like this stuff is going on high levels, and that's what it is. It's the occult, guys. It's the occult running the show. It's a bunch of witches, a bunch of warlock people involved in all kinds of witchcraft occultism to manipulate the outcomes of things. They're being given information by demons. Like Satan is real. He's given information and it's being passed down and passed through. And like, that's what all these plans are directed to. And if you don't recognize that the devil's real, it just seems like chaos to you. So like right now, Tucker's looking at this going, I don't know why that people are doing this. It just seems like complete absurdity. Well, that's because you're not recognizing that it's the Nephilim. You're not recognizing that it's evil. And once you recognize what it is, and that it's Nephilim people, it's demonic lineages and bloodlines, and it's all for a chance to pervert your soul and take people drag them into hell with you, then it like makes perfect sense. Like everything makes sense. You're like, oh, that's why they're doing it. Of course it is. That's it. That's what they're doing.
Well, yeah. Well, I was saying it's interesting to even consider like that. Okay, so the demons once had bodies, and that's when they were Nephilim. But it's interesting again that if demons can use people as puppets, that's kind of like a Nephilim just in itself right there. I mean, that might fit the definition of a Nephilim, because it's like if somebody's fully possessed by a demon, they have a body, they literally have the same spirit, they still have the same intentions, and obviously they have ancient knowledge, they have all kinds of things, and I think that obviously happens to a large extent. Like that, I don't have any doubt about that Nephilim are running the show for sure through the spirits of demons, obviously with the fathers, the fallen angels pulling the strings of this thing and obviously kind of directing the paths. But isn't it kind of interesting to consider, Brian, that if a flood destroyed the world, right, and killed all the things that lived on the earth? Well, it doesn't. The Bible does not say it. It doesn't say it killed all the fish. It doesn't say it killed all the things in the sea. So isn't it interesting to consider, like, if there were survivors that were Nephilim, like after the flood, people talk about the marine kingdom. The marine kingdom, the Hebrews, the people in the Jewish people, they believed there was something very demonic about the sea, and there was a connection to it. So that's why they were saying there's very powerful things that happen in the Bible when you don't know the context of it. When God parted the Red Sea, that was like big time. Like, you can imagine what they thought about that place, and God basically saying, I'm going to push it aside. I'm going to make it dry where it's at. And then you have another time where the Sea of Galilee, right around where like the Bashan was, like a real demonic place, Jesus is walking across the water, almost like showing authority that he can walk right over them. And then, so was it interesting that the apostles, when they saw Jesus walking on the water, what did they think at first?
Thought it was a ghost.
They thought it was a ghost because like they were obviously in some region he was in, a very demonic place. And it's like, so they were terrified. And what else did he do? There was a big storm. What did he do? He calmed it. And they were like, so the sea was getting rough.
Who is this guy?
They said, this has to be God. Obviously they were correct. And I just think it's interesting that like the mythologies of these sea creatures, monsters in the sea and things that are in the ocean. Yeah. Is that possibly a way that some of this stuff could have, like been past the flood?
Yep. And who knows at this point? You got to watch our documentary, guys. So if you got any questions about that, watch our documentary, because we explain this. We talk about our theories on this, and we've got more theories coming up and more stuff coming up. So, stay tuned with all of our things. We'll share some more of these theories because there's so much more to that, I think. But it's you have to go into this like deep understanding. And if you go into understanding demonic stuff like I do, you would understand a whole lot more interesting things in regards to the Marine Kingdom and all that kind of stuff, which is very, like demons are they do get possession of people's bodies, but not fully do. It's like they're fighting to gain possession constantly. They want to retain it, but they don't fully seem to have full authority. And so that's something that it seems that they're like fighting for. And that's why you see people doing back and forth behaviors and wishy-washy things and erratic stuff. It's like maybe one day the demon's in control, maybe one day the person's in control. So you see a lot of this back and forth stuff going on. But whole nother subject. We'll have to make another video on this.
You know what? One thing I wanted to let's go to and I'm going to show you some clips from the Tucker Roseanne podcast. The one thing I want to focus on here was when he was talking about like Tucker literally starts talking about the pyramids, and he's like, how come they don't know how the pyramids were made? Yeah, Roseanne immediately says, because they do know.
I'll just start with the one thing that we do know, which is what we don't know, which is how the pyramids are built. Mm-hmm. And I don't understand how we could send men to the moon, but no one can come up with even a rough theory for how the pyramids are built. Or even what age they are, because we don't know that either, actually.
And they're under the water, too.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's pyramids under the water.
But why, can I ask you this, since you know much more of this than I, but why is there such institutional resistance to acknowledging that we don't know certain things?
Because we do know.
Oh, well, I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah. Hello.
Oh,
that's interesting. Wait, explain that a little.
No,
that's
because
really
everything is the people at the tippy top, the owners of the world, the big club, like George Carlson says, that you and me ain't in. We ain't in it.
I've never been invited.
No, we're never going to be either. Please God. But they know everything. They know the real. It's all in the Vatican libraries. They know everything.
And I was like, yeah. Thank you. Because I said, I'm telling you, that literally that's when you get into this whole, why they do this, they do the Illuminati stuff. It's like, because they have the knowledge, they have the secrets, and guess what? Not all of them do, but obviously they're getting initiated, and obviously that's the whole point of like the levels, the bricks, Brian, the bricks going up.
Your brick wall there, bro. Oh my gosh, you're looking pretty Freemasonry behind you. Oh no.
Oh, yeah, by the way, and of course, I don't get it as much on my own podcast because Brian doesn't call me out for being a Freemason every day. But every time I do a live stream lately, it's like, bro, if you're like on the good side, why do you have the bricks? And I'm like, because the walls are beige. And I thought it looked cool.
Yeah, because the walls. It's a decoration you can buy it at Home Depot.
Yeah, it was a Home Depot thing, and I thought it looked cool. You know what? I'm all about the symbolism. I never even considered that I would be called a Freemason for doing that. But
we vehemently go against Freemasonry, and we renounce Freemasonry, and we think it's the devil and Satan worshiping, and obviously we pray for people. So clearly,
that is a Luciferian club. Like, I don't think that's a Gnostic thing. And again, like, so this gets into the Gnosticism.
But having a brick house doesn't make you a Mason.
It does not. No, they built stuff out of stones, and believe it or not, Jesus was the cornerstone. So, that's okay.
He was a Mason. Sure.
That's okay. So, point being is that, again, this is what Gnosticism is. It's a secret knowledge, and again, they view knowledge as power, so they don't give it to anybody. So that's why. Yeah. That's why they'll just give you the dumbest.
That's why they play dumb with everything.
The dumbest explanations about like how they did things or who did them and when, and it's like. Everything in Egypt happened about 3,000 years ago, because guess what? That's really the only thing they have any kind of records for. So everything happened at the same time. So isn't it funny when you think about like, okay, so they try to put this timeline together, how they built the Great Pyramid. And when it took this long and they were working shifts 24 hours a day for 20 years or whatever, putting bricks down like every 2 minutes. Well, consider this. Was that the only thing that was being built in Egypt at the time? Because there's lots of stuff there. So no, what about with all the other stuff they were building? And who was feeding them? It's like the crazy stuff. But so then Tucker goes on to talk about these mounds in Missouri.
Here in North America, there are certain archaeological ruins, say in the state of Missouri. Mm-hmm. They were not built by the descendants of the current American Indians. We know that. One of them is a mile long.
Yeah.
A mile long. In Missouri now.
Yeah.
There's almost nothing like I've never learned any of this in school. It's all totally real. Look it up. It's on Wikipedia, which is the most CIA-controlled information source in the world.
What does it look like?
It's a mound. It's a tell, but 50 feet high or something. I'm guessing.
Oh, they're finding stuff all over. We have Jimmy Corsetti coming on. He finds stuff all over.
So there's a overwhelming evidence. Well, there's proof that there were massive population centers in North America long before 1492. So. What?
These megaliths. I mean, so again, like it's interesting. Me and Bryan were talking about this a little bit. So in Missouri, they have I think it's the is it Cahokia? Is this big mound in Missouri, and literally, I think it's like a mile long in diameter, like all like arounds of like the megalith. And you're like, again, like talk about hidden in plain sight. And again, if you start looking around the just you guys just take some time, do a web search about mounds in America. Like obviously there's a famous there's a famous serpent mound in Ohio, and obviously that's nuts looking because it's literally like a snake biting something. The truth of the matter is it just a mound? And that's what I said. I know Bryan believes it was something, but I was like, my buddy Luke Caverns did a video that blew my mind a while back, and it was showing like the pyramids in like South America and Mexico when they were underground, like literally they were covered by earth, and like some of them literally had trees growing on them. They had grass. They like I guess
they just look like mountains.
Yeah, I think is it the Pyramid to the Sun or the Temple to the Sun in Mexico? Literally look like a big hill. And I know that people would say if it was still under the ground, they would say, "Oh, that's totally natural." Well, obviously, once they dug it up, it was a big pyramid under there. So this thing, I think it's very likely that there's megalithic stones under this thing. So then if you have to consider that, just put it this way, like people built something like they didn't just stack dirt on top of dirt. I mean, there's stuff under there. The real question is what's under there and who did it? Because again, this is very similar to like the natives, the Indians who are here don't claim they did it. So that's what like Tucker says this. And I was like, it blows me away that it's like, gosh, Tucker, if you're listening, get us on the podcast. We can talk. We can explain a lot of this stuff. But he mentions, okay, so there was very obvious examples that there was lots of people here in North America before 1492, and they weren't the people that they met when they came over on the boats. So, guys, do you understand that completely like annihilates the paradigm they've taught us in school? That is exactly what we're talking about. It's like that these things, they hate the truth because it's true, and they lie about our history, and they want to keep us blind about what happened. And again, we're talking about like we always go back to this, and I said that's why I praise God that he gave us this topic, this voice to talk about this right now, because people are starting to get it. And it's like they don't want you to know what the days of Noah were like, because when Jesus comes back, it's going to be like the days of Noah. People don't know what happened before, and again, they're doomed. They'll be doomed to repeat the same thing and makes the same mistakes that people made, and they'll just trust academia, trust the science, trust whoever. And it's like, guys, trust your own. Trust God, number one, but trust your own senses. Like if something doesn't make sense to you, don't just assume some guy in a white coat knows more than you just because he's got a white coat. Like make him explain it. And I think that's overall. I think like Tucker is obviously free to say some of these things now, but I guess that's the thing. That was the one maddening part about it. I was like, I believe he knows a lot more than he said. I think that he obviously didn't want to get himself out too far on a limb, being like Alex Jones, as you mentioned. He doesn't want to be Alex Jones. But I mean, to me, Tucker Carlson talking about these things, he's ready for Ancient Angels, man. He is ready for it.
I wonder if he's bought it. I mean, I know he's totally got to have watched my channel because they talk about all these political things and connecting them to Nephilim. So I'm just like, this is interesting if he's not seen my videos on it, because I know I talk about like the George Washington connection to the Nephilim. I'm just like, dude, I want to be like, hey, check this out. This might give you some answers, bro. If you haven't seen it.
No, I mean,
Bring us on the show, Tucker.
I just know, like, I just know that I said, like, that's what I was saying, like, and of course, I'll I'll be honest. I use that as an opportunity to plug the movie because I'm like, guys, if you think that people are starting to get it, and obviously I think that people are getting parts of the puzzle, and I'm not saying Bryan and I got it all fit together. We've got a lot more parts than we probably got a lot more pieces than most people do, and put it together in a way that people can understand. But I think again, some people. It's funny how Roseanne was talking about Nephilim from outer space, and again, like so, we don't really we're not saying they're from
they're not from outer.
They're not from outer space. They're from the heavens. So obviously, and we don't. The Nephilim aren't straight from the heavens, but I guess their fathers their fathers are from the heavens, and they came here. But I think that's where it's like, depending on who you listen to, the Anunnaki were aliens. So the Anunnaki is very clearly a story about the Watchers and the angels who came down and created Nephilim. Again, the Greek mythology. They're not aliens; they're gods who came down and created demigods. Like
in the Bible, they call them the Anunnaki. They call them sons of Anak.
Yeah, sons of the sons of Anak. And again, so these
sons of Anak are the Anunnaki. It's the same thing. And in America, they're called the Abunnaki.
Oh yeah, well it's interesting. So if you think about it, though, like again, some people like try to use this as a slam against Christianity. Oh, it's like, oh, these religions are all copying each other. And it's like, no, they're all telling the same story, obviously from different perspectives. And we know that obviously the father of lies is going to put a twist on the story, but it's like, there's a reason they all sound the same, because there was a time when the gods were amongst the people. they had relations with women, create a race of hybrids. And eventually there was a big flood. And after that, people knew about this for a long time. And it wasn't until recently that obviously the devil controlled this whole world enough where books are burned, history's forgotten, history's rewritten. Obviously nothing like, again, like so you have these pyramids all over the whole world. And it's like, everybody says they act like science says they have an idea who did it. We know that they don't. Because like I said, all you have to do is listen to what they say about it. There was a connected society. And that's the example. Those are the things that if they could bulldoze those things, they would have. So we wouldn't be able to ask questions about them. But they're too big. That's how you know that we couldn't build those things today, because they couldn't destroy them if they wanted to, because they would have. Because like just every place, like every city in America burned down basically in the 1800s for some reason, and all that history has been lost. Like the famous the Library of Alexandria got burned down. It's like, do you really think that knowledge was not saved? And of course, it's funny because Roseanne said all that stuff is in the vault in the Vatican.
It sure is.
And you're like, is it? I mean,
yep.
I don't believe that. So the Romans were not supposedly the barbarians, right? Do you really think they would have burned books that they didn't have backups for, or if they wouldn't have kept the good ones? It almost reminds me. That story almost reminds me of when in Iraq, when in 2003, when the Baghdad museum got looted. And you're like, oh, that's interesting. Like we go invade this place and the museum gets looted. Well, I guess all that stuff's gone. I guess no one has it now. And it's like, I bet you the people who really wanted, the people who are very powerful have it now. And so they're not getting rid of any knowledge.
They found another thing. In Iraq, they just found another thing. They uncovered some Babylonian statues and stuff in the ground. So yeah, they're still discovering stuff there. It's the region of Babylon. So like, there's all kinds of stuff over in Iraq that people just don't even. But yeah.
Well, if you think about it, that's the one thing. If you really think about it, that I've been blown away, and I think this is what got me more on this topic. I think this is probably one of the reasons why we made this movie, because when we were growing up, the only megalith I think most people knew about was the pyramids in Giza, and then you start to learn a little bit more about this
Machu Picchu,
and then you find out they're everywhere. Like they're everywhere. And then you like I said, I went out to Sedona, and literally in Sedona, like the mountains look like there was ancient structures there. They look like they were melted or something. And then I said, you go look out there and it's like, you know what mountains look like. And then I look out there over the vista and I see one that looks just like a pyramid. And I'm like, was that a pyramid? And I'm thinking like, yeah, I think it was. Okay. So if there was one there, and honestly, it's not too crazy to think there was a pyramid here, like in Arizona, when you're thinking like, Mexico is not very far. They got them there. Like, why would it be too hard to believe? So now you realize a lot of the stuff is underground too. So like, if there was a flood that destroyed the whole earth, can you imagine how much sediment and dirt and everything moved? I mean, they would never be able to dig it all up.
They dug up some more of the pyramids over in Mexico, and I saw some excavation at one of the pyramids that looked like it was totally uncovered. They thought they found the base. Well, they dug a little further and found out that that's just the tip of the thing, and it like goes down way further. It goes much more deeper. And so there's like so there's some footage or some photos you can look up online where it's like they've dug below what they thought this pristine level was for the pyramids. Found out there's more. There's more.
They said in Cholula. Okay, so this is one of the ones that needs to be talked about. So Graham Hancock did Ancient Apocalypses on Netflix, and he mentions the Cholula pyramid, and I think they said the base of that is like, what is it, like 3 or 4 times bigger than the Great Pyramid base? It's not as tall, but it's way bigger, and it's a big hill. It's all covered in dirt, and there was a Catholic church that was built on the top. How about that? Vatican with the vaults.
Interesting.
So there's a Catholic church. They say that there's multiple pyramids built on tops of multiple pyramids. Like, so there's like levels of different pyramids, and you're like, okay, try to wrap your head around that. That a pyramid was built, it was covered completely. They built on top of that another one, and then they built on top of that another one. Okay, so like, what the heck happened? Did that so we're not just talking about one flood, we're talking about multiple like cataclysms that did that.
Massive flood.
And you just think about that. The craziest part is when Graham Hancock starts to tell the story about what the Aztecs told the conquistadors. They told them that giants built it, and they said that the sky god got very angry with them, and eventually he rained down on them a giant flood and killed them all. And so Graham Hancock says, well, perhaps they were intellectual giants. And I was just like, so close, but yet so far away. But I mean, that's just another example of like that. Tucker Carlson is saying these things. Don't get it twisted. Bryan and I don't need Tucker Carlson to validate us. But I am encouraged because I said, if Tucker Carlson is speaking out about this, Roseanne speaking about this, I'm not saying to go follow them. I'm telling you to read your Bible. I'm telling you to do your own research and obviously check everything versus the scriptures. But what I am saying is it's encouraging. I'm not going to say, I mean, is this possible? Are they disclosing this because they are controlled opposition? Possibly. But I mean, to me, this is significant because this is not Alex Jones. This is Tucker Carlson. And to me, it's like, whether this was, done with good motives or not, I think I have no reason to believe it wasn't. I believe that a lot of people are going to listen to that, and I think a lot of people are going to wake up. And I really do believe, and I'm not just saying this because obviously for selfish reasons. This is a reason why we made Ancient Angels, and this is why if you have seen it and you like it, we encourage you to share this with people because this, and you could point right to the Tucker thing. The Nephilim, he says the Nephilim might be behind it. It's like, for one, we'll be able to teach you how to say it properly. It's Nephilim. And for two, we'll give you the context without saying, because Tucker says, I don't know anything about that. Wink, wink. I don't know anything about that. Well, Bryan and I do. We know a little bit. We don't know everything.
Yep.
But we know we have researched. We have researched this a lot. So, guys, at the end of the day, we encourage you, listen, show people that clip. I would encourage people, before you just send them our video, show them the Tucker clip and ask people what they, if you got somebody who's never heard that subject before, say, listen to what Tucker and Roseanne were talking about and ask them what they think about that. And if they say, what's the Nephilim? They say, guess what? I got the movie right for you guys. It's called Ancient Angels.
There you go.
Well, anyways, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you guys have not seen Ancient Angels, once again, links in the bio, ancientangelsmovie.com. It's doing very well. Obviously, people love it, and we want to make more. So obviously, if you like what we do, please support us. Please support this page. Like, share, subscribe, all the things. Hit the notification bell because, once again, social media kind of hates guys like Bryan and I, so we do well every now and then. And sometimes they're like, we're going to ban these
them
guys.
and you have to make a new account.
Yeah. The truth's not always popular, but obviously the truth's important. And again, as Tucker said, some people hate the truth just because it is the truth. We love the truth because we love Jesus and we love you guys. And we hope to hear from you guys soon. God bless.
Later.